She sat in court like it was already over. Not grieving. Not nervous. Just done. Her shoulders rested against the back of the chair like she'd rehearsed this posture. One leg crossed over the other, blazer neat, heels polished. Her hair fell just right, like it had been fixed in the reflection of a rearview mirror on the way to a funeral. The makeup was perfect. Matte. Controlled. No shine. No softness. Beside me, Daniel shifted in his seat. His knees didn't reach the edge of the chair, so they stuck out like little posts. He clutched a Spider-Man backpack between his arms like a shield. I could hear his breathing. I could hear everything. The fluorescent lights overhead, the soft clicks of a pen tapping against a clipboard, the tight shuffle of dress shoes on courthouse tile. Every sound was too loud, except her voice. Her voice was soft, steady, weaponized. "I want the apartment," she said. "The bank accounts. Both cars. He can have the kid." She didn't look at me, didn't look at Daniel, just stared ahead like she was dictating a grocery list. The attorney next to her didn't blink. They'd practiced this, every phrase, every pause, every calculated act of surrender. Give away the child, keep the assets. It's cleaner that way. No weekend visitations. No custody battles. No emotional anchors to slow her new life down. My lawyer leaned toward me, his voice low. "We can object." I raised my hand, cutting him off. Then I looked at the judge. "I agree," I said. "Completely." The room held its breath. Even the bailiff, who hadn't looked up all morning, finally tilted his head toward me. You could feel the judgment in the walls, the way the silence dragged out and pressed against your ribs. I took the pen, signed the papers, and stood up. Daniel stood too, clutching my arm, confused. I didn't look back. We walked out together, me and the boy she left behind, the boy I had raised, the only one in that courtroom who still had a piece of my heart. And she didn't even watch us go. But I knew something she didn't. There were 2 case numbers on that docket. And the second hearing was mine. I remembered how it all started in Portland. Funny how your brain brings back the early years when you least want them. I saw her again as I first knew her. Soaked from the rain, jeans ripped at the ankle, holding a cracked phone and 3 resumes smudged with water. She was waiting outside a cafe I used to do drywall for. I gave her my umbrella. She told me I was too good for this world. 2 weeks later, she was living with me. The apartment was 1 bedroom, tight. Just me, her, and Daniel, who was still in pull-ups and thought every sock was a puppet. We made it work. She studied online, desperate for a business degree. I worked concrete, long days, sometimes nights. Came home with hands that looked like stone. I remember holding her while she cried over a failed exam. I remember checking our fridge at 2 a.m. and realizing we'd have to make dinner stretch 3 nights instead of 2. I remember doing it anyway. She used to say, "One day I'll pay you back." She did. Just not the way I thought. Daniel wasn't mine. Not by blood. But I fed him, bathed him, held him when the fevers got high or when the nightmares wouldn't stop. I taught him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to look people in the eye when they spoke. I answered every why and every how come. I listened when his mother didn't. When she disappeared into her phone or locked herself in the bathroom for alone time, he'd sit on the floor outside her door and whisper, "Is she okay?" And I'd lie. I had to. I'd say, "Yeah, buddy, she's just tired. Let's go build something." We built a lot, me and him, and I thought it meant something. I thought it would hold. But love without blood is a strange thing. People celebrate it when it's cute, when you're the man who stepped up. But when it goes wrong, when it fractures, there's no ceremony, no understanding, just a quiet erase. She erased me the moment she slid those papers across the courtroom table. I didn't see the cracks at first. They were subtle. Phone face down. A text answered a little too fast. A smile that didn't belong to me. A scent that lingered when she came home. Not perfume, but a stranger's cologne. I knew it. I didn't confront it right away. You tell yourself stories when you're afraid of the truth. She started staying late for group work. Her classes had all gone remote, but she still needed to study in person. She said Daniel was getting too clingy, that I was coddling him, that he needed to grow up. He was 8. I didn't sleep much that month. Every night I sat in the kitchen pretending to read the news, waiting for the front door to open. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes she came back after sunrise. Daniel started asking questions. Why doesn't Mom say goodnight anymore? Why doesn't Mom eat dinner with us? Why did she forget my field trip? Each one like a pin pushed into my chest. And still, I didn't confront her, because some part of me, the tired, loyal, scared part, believed it was just stress, just a rough patch. We'd seen worse. Then, one night, I found her wedding ring on the bathroom counter. Right hand. That's when I knew. She played the hearing like a script. There was no emotion, no guilt, just a performance polished down to the bone. She didn't fight for Daniel, didn't even look at him. I wondered what she saw when she glanced at me from across that courtroom. A man broken down from years of manual labor? A fool who thought loyalty would be enough? Did she see the hours I'd worked when she was too anxious to get out of bed? The dinners I made when she locked herself away? The birthdays I paid for alone? No. She saw an obstacle, something to be stepped around. A placeholder for a chapter she was ready to forget. But I didn't forget. I remembered every loan I took out for her business, every payment I made on her school debt, every signature I scribbled at 2 a.m. so she could chase something bigger. Everything was in both our names. I trusted her. And now I would remind her what that meant. That second hearing, that was mine. She didn't know. She didn't even stay in the building. Her attorney hadn't told her. Maybe he thought it was a clerical error. Maybe he didn't care. But I did. Because while she stood in court pretending I never mattered, I had been gathering the debts. The silent ones. The invisible ones. And they all bore her name. Started small. The kind of detail you miss when you're exhausted. When your bones hurt from labor and your head is too full of numbers and half-spoken promises. Her wedding ring, once worn on the left, now mirrored on the right. I asked once. She laughed it off. It's European, she said, tapping it against her coffee cup. Relax. But Rebecca was born in Indiana. The farthest she'd been from Portland was an overpriced retreat in Sacramento. I knew she was lying. I let her lie. You don't confront fire with wet wood. You wait. You watch. You gather fuel. The changes came faster after that. Her phone was always face down, even when it vibrated. Her texts were shorter, less frequent. She kept passwords now. Her screen locked after 10 seconds. I wasn't allowed to use her laptop for work stuff anymore. She started staying out late. Study group, she'd say, even when classes had ended. I stopped asking. Each excuse was a smaller insult, a sharper blade. She came home smelling like someone else. Not cologne exactly, but a man's deodorant. Something synthetic. Something that didn't belong in our home. She used to greet Daniel every night before bed. A small thing but sacred. Now she'd drift past his room like it wasn't there. He'd sit under his covers, reading aloud to his stuffed bear, hoping she'd hear, hoping she'd stop. Sometimes he'd whisper, "Is Mommy mad at me?" I'd lie. I always lied for her. Then one night, Daniel climbed into bed beside me. His hair smelled like crayons and sweat. He tugged on my shirt and asked, "Why doesn't Mom kiss me goodnight anymore?" That was the moment I broke. Not loudly, not with anger, just inside, quietly, like a pipe under a sink, splitting beneath pressure. A slow, silent leak. I confronted her the next morning. We were alone in the kitchen. Daniel had gone to school. The sink was full of dishes, and the air smelled like old eggs and lemon cleaner. She wore a silk robe I hadn't seen before. It looked expensive. "Are you seeing someone?" I asked, flatly. She turned around slow, like I'd spoken in another language. "What?" "You heard me." She narrowed her eyes. "You're paranoid." I didn't respond, just waited. She rolled her eyes and walked to the fridge, pulled out almond milk like we weren't having this conversation. Like I hadn't just asked the question that could end our marriage. Then she laughed. It was a sharp, joyless sound. "You're not on my level," she said. You wouldn't understand. That was when it clicked. It wasn't just that she didn't love me. It wasn't just that she'd found someone else. She thought she was above me, that my sacrifices, the job I worked, the hours I gave, the home I built were laughable. She believed she had outgrown me. She mistook my loyalty for smallness, my labor for failure. She forgot who she was when we met. She forgot the woman curled on my couch, crying over exam scores and eviction notices, with a toddler on her lap and no money for groceries. She forgot the man who said, "Don't worry, I've got you." But I remembered, and I was done being forgotten. Her descent into detachment was clinical. She began rehearsing freedom before she ever left. At first, she withdrew from the routines. No more family dinners. No more weekend drives. She started ordering separate groceries, almond butter, kombucha, protein powders that stank up the fridge. Her shelf in the bathroom grew crowded with skincare bottles labeled in French. I recognized none of them. I stopped trying. She laughed more on the phone, but never when she was with us. She picked fights for no reason. If Daniel spilled juice, she sighed like it was the end of the world. If I folded towels wrong, she stared at me like I was doing it on purpose. Everything I did was met with a kind of silent disgust. And yet she stayed, slept under my roof, ate food I paid for, charged her laptop from the electricity I worked to keep running. She lived on my time, on my dime, in a house where her presence grew colder each day. When I brought up counseling, she blinked slowly and said, "You think this can be fixed?" I didn't answer. There was no point. That was the moment I stopped trying. She played the first hearing like a script. Polished nails, high heels, a perfectly balanced blend of grief and confidence. She looked like a woman stepping into her new life, not someone burying an old one. Her lawyer called me the respondent. It felt surgical. Daniel sat beside me, confused. His eyes bounced between faces like he was trying to guess who was lying. He didn't know we were the ones being left behind. She laid it out neatly. The apartment, hers. The cars, hers. The bank accounts, hers. Daniel? Mine. The judge asked if I wanted to contest custody. I didn't. She didn't want him. I wouldn't force her. I accept, I said. All of it. Her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite surprise. Just a flicker of satisfaction. She thought she won. But I knew better. She had forgotten about the second hearing. Most people don't notice the fine print in life. They miss the clauses, the footnotes, the signatures buried under digital contracts. But I had paid attention. I had filed receipts. I had studied every invoice, every loan, every stupid subscription tied to her business ventures. There were debts, student loans, business credit lines, tax penalties, equipment leases, some in her name, some in mine, some shared, and I'd made sure that sharing was airtight. 2 months before the divorce, I began consolidating. I refinanced the business loan under her name. I transferred our lease on the equipment under her name. I closed our joint card and issued a new one in her name. Every debt she had blurred into mine, I handed back to her with a smile and a signature. She didn't even notice. Too busy texting her study group. The second hearing started 1 hour after the first ended. She didn't even stay in the courthouse. Thought her part was done. Thought she'd cut ties and walked clean. But her name was still on the docket. So I stayed. Sat in the same chair. Different courtroom. Different judge. Same story. This time I was the petitioner. She tried to stop it later. Said she hadn't been notified. Said she never got the paperwork. Her voice, once steel, was now frantic. Her lawyer stammered, flipped through files, asked for recess. But the judge shook his head. These debts were consolidated, signed and notarized. She's liable. She wasn't fully informed. She signed. Simple as that. Rebecca stared at me then, really stared, for the first time in months. Not with hatred. Not with confidence. With fear. That was the last time I saw her in control. Everything she had claimed was hers, the apartment, the car, the bank account, was now a liability. Everything tied to her business future came dragging with interest rates and penalties. She had inherited a dream she no longer wanted. Because it wasn't a dream anymore. It was a bill. And bills always come due. The courthouse was almost empty. The morning crowd had thinned, and only the tired or the ruined were left in the halls. I stayed seated. New room. New judge. Same name on the docket, hers. Case number ending in 31B. A quiet grenade wrapped in dry language and notarized forms. She never showed. Her lawyer did, 20 minutes late. Sweating through his collar. Papers jumbled in his briefcase like they'd been shoveled in during a fire. He didn't know what this was. He barely had the right file. "This is a mistake," he said before even sitting down. My client was not informed of a second hearing. But I was ready. I handed over the notification logs. Time-stamped. Signed for. Her initials at the bottom of each certified envelope. The judge barely blinked. "Let's proceed." So we did. I laid it all out, one debt at a time. The business loan. $72,000. Co-signed. Refinanced. Default risk. Current holder. Her. The credit card. $13,400. Balance transferred. Closed under my name. Reopened under hers. The equipment lease. $9,800. A photography suite she never used beyond Instagram stories. Now hers. All hers. Back taxes. 3 years' worth of missed quarterly payments on her entrepreneurial venture. Now compounded with interest and late fees. Every dream she chased on my dime. Every class she took. Every program she swore would change our lives. Turned anchor. Legal, binding, and documented. Her lawyer tried to speak. The judge raised a hand. She signed. And that was the end of it. Her face began to fall apart the moment she read the summary. I didn't see it firsthand. She was gone. But I got the texts. Not from her. From her attorney. Short, nervous updates. Client is unaware of the liability transfer. Client disputes her responsibility. Client claims assets were negotiated separately in family court. Each one shorter than the last. Each one more desperate. But the ink was dry. The papers were filed. What she called freedom now had a price tag. And I wasn't the one paying. She called me that evening. 5 missed calls. 2 voicemails. No emotion, just noise. "Michael, we need to talk." "Michael, I didn't know. This isn't what I agreed to." "Michael, can we please?" "Call me back." I didn't. Daniel was watching cartoons with his knees curled under him. A bowl of cereal untouched on the coffee table. I sat next to him. He leaned into my arm without looking up. "Is Mom coming over tonight?" he asked. I swallowed. "No, bud. Not tonight." "Okay." He said it like someone closing a book. No tears. Just quiet. It broke something in me. Not because she left. Because he already knew she wouldn't come back. She tried to stop it. That week, she filed a motion to reverse the liability assignments. Said I had intentionally misled her. Said I'd taken advantage of her emotional distress. Claimed coercion. Incompetency. Fraud. Her lawyer argued loudly. Passionately. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The paper trail was bulletproof. Her signatures. Her login timestamps. Her email confirmations. All of it. When the judge denied her motion, she stood up in the gallery. Didn't ask for permission. Didn't care. "This is insane," she said. "You can't make me responsible for everything. We built that life together." I didn't look at her, but the judge did. He cleared his throat and said quietly, "Then the liabilities are yours too." Her lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder. She brushed it off. And in that moment, loud, shaking, pale with disbelief, she turned to me. And I saw it. Not rage. Not hate. Panic. The truth had finally caught up to her. She started sending emails. First polite. Formatted. Professional. "Michael, I think we need to revisit the separation agreement. Michael, for the sake of Daniel, can we approach this amicably? I believe we misunderstood some aspects of the debt transfer." Then they turned sharp. Accusatory. "You tricked me. This won't hold up. I know people." Then came the silence. I didn't respond to a single one. Because I didn't need to explain. She'd already traded everything for nothing. She showed up once. 3 weeks after the hearings. Daniel and I had moved into a small rental. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, no dishwasher. Nothing fancy. Just clean walls, honest space. A place where nothing hid in shadows. I heard the knock through the kitchen window. Looked out. Saw her car, the newer one. The one she'd insisted we lease for her client meetings. It was parked crooked. The front bumper was scraped. She looked different. Like she hadn't slept. Daniel was in the living room building a Lego set. I told him I'd be right back. I stepped outside. She crossed her arms tight over her chest. Her voice was dry. "Why are you doing this?" I stared at her for a long time before speaking. "Doing what?" "You know what." She gestured at the house. The debt. The silence. All of it. "I thought we agreed." "We didn't agree. You demanded." "I accepted." She flinched. Her eyes scanned the street, the sidewalk, anything but me. "I was under stress," she said finally. "You knew I wasn't thinking clearly." I shrugged. "You thought clearly enough to want everything." She opened her mouth, closed it, bit her lip. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I thought you'd just let it go." I nodded slowly, and I closed the door. Her spiral came fast. The apartment gone. Repossessed after missed payments. The car returned to the dealership, sold at loss. The bank accounts frozen pending debt recovery. The business, a social media handle and a closed LLC. I watched it all from a distance. She tried to get some of it back. Sent legal inquiries about the apartment. Tried to renegotiate the lease on the car. Tried to prove I'd mismanaged our shared assets. But I hadn't. I'd simply stopped carrying her weight. And without someone to hold her up, she collapsed. Daniel stopped asking about her. He asked about the toaster once. Said he missed the one that popped the bread higher. He asked why our TV was so small. Why we only had 1 car now. Why I didn't go on my computer as much anymore. I told him the truth. Because what we have now is real. He didn't get it, not fully. But he smiled anyway. And that was enough. Some nights I still hear from her. Voicemails. Short, confused. Like she's walking in circles and hoping I'll reach out to pull her in. Her voice sounds different now. Less sure. Less sharp. Sometimes she asks about Daniel. Sometimes she doesn't. I never reply. Because I did reach out for years. And she never grabbed hold. The house is small. 2 bedrooms. No upstairs. No dishwasher. The walls are a little too thin. The carpet holds onto the smell of old detergent. And the AC unit groans every night like it's dying in its sleep. But it's ours. It sits on a narrow street with too many trucks and not enough trees. The neighbors wave but never ask questions. I like it that way. We came here for quiet, not company. Daniel's room is the size of a pantry. His bed presses against the wall, and his desk barely fits in the corner. Still, he calls it cozy. Tapes comics to the wall. Lines the window with plastic dinosaurs. He says the sunlight hits just right in the morning. Sometimes I watch him sleep. Not in a sentimental way, just to remind myself that he's still here. That after all the lies, the courtrooms, the debts, and the silence, something good stayed with me. She didn't want him. She wanted the bank accounts, the property, the version of herself that lived in other people's eyes. She wanted the illusion of escape without the burden of roots. So she left the one person who would have loved her forever. And now I hold his hand when he gets scared at night. I make pancakes with the last of the eggs. I sew the knees of his jeans when he rips them sliding down dirt hills. I am not perfect, but I am present. And that matters more than perfection ever did. He asked me last week why we don't have a TV. We were sitting on the floor, playing a board game I found at a thrift store. One of the pieces was missing, so we used a penny. He rolled the dice, squinted at me, and asked, "Why don't we have a TV anymore?" I paused. Then I told him the truth. Because what we have is real. He looked at me like he was trying to figure out if that was a riddle. Then he nodded like maybe it was. "I like this better anyway," he said, moving his piece forward. I didn't say anything else. I didn't tell him that the flat screen went to cover our moving expenses, that I sold the old gaming console for gas money, that every piece of entertainment we once owned was exchanged for rent, utilities, and school supplies. I didn't tell him that I wake up most mornings still hearing her voice. Not words, just the shape of it, echoing through an empty kitchen. I didn't tell him I sometimes check my phone for messages that never come. He's too young to carry that weight, so I carry it for him. She still calls. Not often. Once a month, maybe less. Always around the 15th. I don't know why. Maybe it's when the bills are due. Maybe it's when the silence gets too loud. She never says anything worth answering. The first few messages were apologies dipped in denial. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I had more time. It's complicated. Then came the questions. Can I talk to Daniel? Can we just meet? Just once? Why are you doing this? Now the messages are just quiet. Sometimes she hangs up before the beep. Sometimes I hear traffic in the background. Once I heard music, her ringtone, echoing in a store or a bar. I don't return them, because forgiveness without change is just enabling. And I'm done enabling. She tried to get some of it back. The apartment, the joint account, the car, even the old furniture. She filed paperwork through another lawyer, newer, younger, more aggressive. Claimed the settlement was unjust. That her mental state at the time had been unstable. That she'd been misled into decisions she didn't fully understand. The court disagreed. The paper trail held. Every signature was hers. Every transfer logged. Every term clear. The motion was denied without hearing. She didn't appeal. I assume the money ran out. Daniel sometimes asks if she's coming back. He doesn't do it to hurt me. He's just a child trying to make sense of absence. We'll be eating breakfast, or walking past a bakery, or watching another mother scoop her kid into a minivan. And he'll ask, does Mom know where we live? Is Mom mad at me? Do you think Mom misses us? Each question cuts. Not because of what it says, but because of what it doesn't. It's not longing. It's doubt. He doesn't ask when. He asks if. She left the door open just long enough for hope to rot inside him. So I answer simply, yes, she knows. No, she's not mad at you. And the hardest one, I don't know. Because I don't. Because I'm not cruel enough to lie, and not foolish enough to believe. Sometimes I replay it all in my head. The day she moved out, the court hearing, the second case, the panic in her eyes when the judge said, so the liabilities are yours. I don't feel triumph. There's no satisfaction in watching someone drown in their own debt, even if they tied the weights themselves. I just feel tired. Tired of being the only adult in a room full of unfinished people. Tired of being treated like furniture, useful, invisible, replaceable. Tired of sacrificing for people who only remember your faults. I gave her everything I had. And in return, she treated our life like a receipt she could void when the total got too high. But Daniel never asked me to prove myself. He never demanded anything but presence. When I burned dinner, he ate it anyway. When I forgot to buy his favorite cereal, he shrugged and said, toast is fine. When his shoes started wearing thin, he didn't complain. Just tightened the laces and kept walking. He is my son. Not by blood, but by choice. And I chose him every day even when his mother didn't. The truth is simple. I didn't win. This wasn't a victory. It was an escape. A costly, brutal, necessary escape. I lost years. Sleep, health, money. A version of myself I'll never get back. I carry guilt for things I couldn't fix and resentment for the things I enabled. I walk through each day with a limp no one can see. But I still walk. And that counts for something. She taught me one thing. People don't always leave with a slam. Sometimes they leave with a shrug, a silence, a forgotten kiss goodnight. Sometimes they walk out long before they pack a bag. Sometimes they leave by handing you their child and saying, he can have the kid, like he was an afterthought, like we were. And now she lives in the consequences of her freedom. I live in the weight of my choice. And Daniel? He lives. That's all that matters. So tell me, was I wrong? Was I cruel for letting her drown in the debts she created? Was I unkind to close the door when she finally realized what she'd lost? Should I have answered those calls? Should I have opened my arms one more time for someone who only ever took? Or was this the only way to survive? Would you have endured it? Would you?